People think I'm a unique harmonica player. I say, well, I'm one of the few people in America that plays mainly in the key the harmonica is written in. And most people in America, mainland America, play cross harp. If it's a C harmonica, they play in G. And I mainly play in C. I play some in D minor and a little bit in F. And by far my main mentor and the main harmonica language I use is from Sam Hinton.
There's simple ways of playing the blues style, but it's based on what they call choking some of the notes. You have to increase the air pressure within a chamber. You do this by constricting the airflow, but also making it with a high pressure. You play. And that means they call it cross harp because you're playing in a key that's not the key that's stamped on the cover. This is an A harmonica, and so you have to play an E in the first position in cross harp. Here's an old piece done in the old style of cross harp playing. I learned this from the playing of a man named Reverend Turner Jr. Johnson, who was a blind black preacher in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And Reverend Jackson didn't have a church to preach in. He just had street corners to stand on. And he would go stand on a street corner with his harmonica and play religious tunes until he gathered a congregation around him. And this is one of his pieces. Glory, glory, hallelujah, when I lay my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, when I lay my burden down. I'm gonna walk in the streets of glory when I lay my burden down. I'm gonna walk in the streets of glory when I lay my burden down. Well, that's a very simple way of playing cross harp style, and that's just a ghost of the way a good cross harp player makes it sound. But the square style that I'm going to devote my time to here is making use of these two chords that you have down here and rhythm. And you play an A harp in the key of A. And the easiest way to play is just to let your mouth encompass a number of holes, and with, you hope, the melody note you want on top. And I think probably the first way I played was like this. That way of playing is very simple, but it's pretty effective if it's done properly. Bob Dylan does that a lot, for example, in some of his older recordings at least. Another way of playing, though, is to use your tongue to block off some of those holes, but leave one hole open for the melody note on the top. So you can let your mouth encompass 4 or 5 holes, but your tongue blocks them all off and you're playing a single note like... But you see, every time you lift your tongue, you got the chord that's there, and then you can play something like... More than an accompaniment, those chords are sort of a marker of the time. In march time, you'd play like... playing waltz time, you'd play. That waltz time is a kind of a time that a lot of folk music is written in. Here's one you've probably all heard. You remember? East Texas was an interesting place. We're not very far from the Louisiana border, and there were a good many Cajuns around there, especially down around Beaumont, where my grandfather and grandmother lived. And I spent all the time I could with them. But then right there in Crockett, there was a strong contingent of what I would call now Anglo-Celtic tradition of people from the southern mountains. They were Arkansasians who had moved into East Texas, and they were farmers and things like that. There was also a very strong southern black tradition and a southern white tradition, which is quite different from the southern mountain tradition. And all these together made up a real potpourri of American folk styles that I was exposed to as a child. But the important thing about those chords is that one of them is on the blow and the other is on the draw. And you can use this for a rhythm. And there are some pieces of music where it's sort of built in. For example, in the old nursery song about Bobby Shafto, it alternates blowing and drawing consistently all the way through. But in the first measure, all the downbeats are blow. And in the second measure, it's all the downbeats are on the draw. And the tune goes with the chords that come there. So it plays like... And you can use that, if you want, to put it in other places than on the downbeat to give a little variety. For example, in Mississippi Sawyer, listen, this is an old American fiddle tune. It goes... You notice that in some of that, the chord is played on the offbeat, and sometimes it's on the downbeat.